Hello and welcome to another episode of Spartak. This is one of those episodes where we dive into how the big changes in the world are impacting the working class concretely and how workers are reacting to these big changes. It's somewhat common knowledge that Germany's economy has been struggling for some time, especially as a result of the Ukraine war. Not having cheap energy means that German industry has suffered greatly in recent years. In specific, the auto industry, one of the backbones of the German economy, is shedding thousands of jobs. Meanwhile, the German government continues to uphold the drastic course that is causing its own economy to suffer. It's continuing to shoot itself in the foot. So to discuss what's really happening in Germany more generally, but specifically in auto, and the impacts this is having on the sector and the working class in it, I'm joined by comrades Steffen from Spartakist Germany and Jens from Autoworkers for a fighting IG Metall. Hi, comrades.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you for making the time to come and talk to us. I would like to start by asking you to give us a sense of the bigger picture about what's really happening in the German economy. I know I mentioned at the start that it's the question of the energy situation, which has had an impact, but tell me what I've missed and what's really the big picture for what's happening.
Okay, yeah. In the last year, in 2025, we've seen a massive job-cutting program, like tens of thousands of relatively good industrial jobs have been destroyed. And you see the business model of the German capitalists and especially the auto bosses is not working any longer. They see their profits falling and they see no other solution to it than to get it from us workers, to attack us. They have a big crisis in the German auto industry. It's like a structural crisis. They don't have cheap energy from Russia anymore. They have government regulations for green transformation, and they have more and more tariffs from the US, and they have competition from China, from electric cars from China. So, yeah, that's the background.
It used to be like that Germany still has, but used to have much more industry, which was profitable and they could export lots of many goods. Or they would have maybe some pre-manufacturing in China. But then the end product would be done here, like the high-tech stuff, and they could do so because they had affordable, cheap energy. And number two, the chemical industry had also used raw materials from Russia to produce and be very competitive. And that's with this whole sanctions against Russia, it hits the German economy much more than the Russian. So
Yeah. Okay. Jens, you mentioned that this is more of a structural problem of not just the recent years, but maybe going longer a little bit into like the EU and Eastern Europe and so on. I wonder if you can explain just like what exactly has happened with German auto in like the last couple of decades.
Well, they made big profits in the early 2000s. It was, these were their years, and they were successful in keeping our work and pay conditions stagnating. That means, in reality, shrinking, and made big profits. I mean, they have open markets in Eastern Europe since the early 90s, and they used it. I mean, Hungary became a big auto country, and Poland too, Slovakia. They built up a lot of plants there. They shifted production sites to these countries. And the main reason was, as you can guess, they are getting half of our pay. And that's the main reason. And now they tell us, sorry guys, we don't have work for you anymore in Germany. So we need to close plants or at least significantly reduce the workforce.
Yeah, so maybe let's just get into it. What exactly are the attacks that are coming in auto? Maybe give us a sense of the numbers.
What I've heard that every month last year, 10,000 jobs were destroyed. And we are talking about good industrial jobs with relatively decent pay and jobs with conditions that the unions have fought for decades. Maybe you've heard of the deal that was made at Volkswagen 1 year ago, at Christmas 1 year ago. they agreed to the slashing of more than 20,000 jobs, and in a company that is a bastion of unionization in this country. In my company, Mercedes, there is a program to introduce less pay and also to cut several thousand jobs. In my plant in Berlin, they, as I said, they wanted to. 5 years ago, they threatened to close the plant. In the late 90s, we were 3,600 workers. Now we are around 2,000, and they recently made a deal, which means that we will be reduced to around 1,000. What they plan for the next years. Yeah, right.
Okay, there's a lot there that I want to start picking apart. First of all, I think the numbers are crazy. 10,000 every month that you said?
Yeah, we call it, in our leaflets that we brought out so far and distributed in our plant, we call it a massacre of industrial jobs.
I mean, it really is.
It's a drastic word, massacre, but that's how you can call it. Yeah, it's a massive attack on a stronghold, you say, of the German working class.
VW is organized by the metal union. 90% of the workforce is in the metal union in VW.
In the German plants.
You mean in the country as a whole?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, on average.
Yeah. Okay, that's a very high unionization rate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's good.
And when they dare to make such a program of slashing jobs at Volkswagen with a unionization rate of over 90%, I mean, you can imagine what they are willing to do.
Yes, for sure.
That's a declaration of war to the German working class.
Yeah, for sure. I guess generally, what has been the reaction to this declaration of war?
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, the capitalists make this declaration of war, but the question is, how does our side react? How does the union react? And we call it in German Stillhaltepolitik. The course of the union is a non-fighting course. They don't do anything. At Volkswagen, they make big speeches that we will fight and so on. But in the end, 1 year ago, they made a deal and accepted it. And that's what's happening everywhere. And most recently at the car supplier Bosch, another more than 20,000 jobs. Yeah, that's the reason why some of the colleagues in my plant came together. We want to fight this deindustrialization, this massacre of industrial jobs, and we are very dissatisfied with what our union is doing.
Yeah. So, okay, I guess let me step back. As you're explaining this, one question I have immediately is, you mentioned, okay, really strong unionization rates, but they're making deals with the employers. So I guess for me, it makes me think, what's the problem of the German trade union movement? Like, why?
Yeah,
why don't they push back?
The problem is the leadership.
Yes.
But that's actually the question we were discussing among our colleagues and in our group, Autoworkers for fighting IG Metall, Autoworkers for fighting union. So what are the reasons for this? Why are they accepting all this? Why are they not putting into practice the methods that made the union strong?
So what do your coworkers think? What's kind of the consciousness, I guess, of the people that want to fight?
Like co-management, that's a word everybody knows, or social partnership, how they call it. That's I mean, everybody knows that the union leadership and the factory council majorities in the country, what they are doing is co-management, and they pay more respect to the profitability of the company than to put the interests of us workers first and fight for these interests with every means possible. They say if the company is healthy, then the workers are well off. But that's a fallacy and concrete. I mean, that's a general thing, co-management, everybody knows that. But we also tried to give concrete answers. How does this play out right now? And right now you see the course of the government is totally in confrontation to Russia. They want to arm Ukraine to the teeth. And that's the framework of the rulers, basically. And the union leadership is totally in agreement with that.
So the union's really selling the idea that the workers and the bosses have the same interest.
Yes, but there's one more aspect behind it too. Also, the unions supported the government since 1998. The SPD entered government. This was a big change in the political landscape in reality for a long time. And then the SPD entered government after a long period of conservative rulers, of conservative-led governments in Germany. And the Greens also entered the government at that time. The Greens, which were, which were the pacifist party at that time. They're posed as we are modern, we are scientific, we protect the environment, the climate, and so on. And the trade union leadership is full of that ideology. So there is a thing that a combustion engine, Germany produces, what makes German economy really strong is they build the best combustion engines in the world. That's one of their things. And this is all like old-fashioned. It's like old technology. It's bad for the climate. It's bad for, and this has made a huge impact on the union leadership, including this is a huge pressure on the workers. When we collected signatures against closing down the factory, I talked to the colleagues there and said, these cars are great, and all these electrical cars, they're expensive. We don't have infrastructure. I drive a used car. I need it for my children and my family and so on. And all this, I can spend 70,000 on a Tesla. And I declared immediately my readiness to drive a Mercedes, of course, in solidarity. So, but this makes a big impact. It's old-fashioned, it's outdated, but on the other hand, in reality, what you see is that they impose laws to ban that technology. They imposed a law that from 2030 on, combustion engines should no longer be sold. But this makes a huge impression and pressure on the workforce. Smash the highest unionized, strongest part of the workforce, and then they can do whatever they want with the rest. I think that's the kind of thing that's going on. And the trade union leadership is ideologically full in that thing, and we have to fight that on all levels. Each one, be it NATO, be it Ukraine, be it green ideology.
Yeah. I have a question. I think you're obviously right that the problem is the leadership. It's very, very obvious when they are with the bosses making partnerships, managing how many layoffs, how many jobs should be, destroyed. So that's the problem. But then for, say, rank and file workers, is there growing anger against the leadership? Like, I'm trying to understand if the union is not fighting back, what is the reaction amongst the base?
As you can imagine this, and I've seen this in recent discussions with my colleagues, there's a lot of frustration and resignation that is directed against the union as a whole. And we say that in our leaflets. In the headline, we say we are for strong fighting IG Metall. We are for a strong fighting metal workers union. So we think that the current policy of our union leadership actually weakens the union and makes it weaker for the battles, to fight. Actually, we need a strong union in the battles that lay before us. We tell our colleagues it's important and it's a gain that we have a union because you cannot confront your boss as a single worker, but the problem is the union leadership. Yeah, as we've seen that very clearly after the Volkswagen deal, the bourgeois press reported that high numbers of workers quit the union. A part of it could be propaganda, but I think because I see it among my colleagues, I cannot count the conversations that I had with colleagues who I tried to convince not to quit the union. The organization rate in my plant is around 50 or 60% now. And when you talk to older workers who are in their 50s or early 60s, they tell you exactly, they tell you all the betrayals the union made in the last 20 or 30 years, how their condition got worse since the early 90s. And they tell you in this year, they stopped the fight for the 35-hour work week in East Germany as soon as it showed effect in Western German car plants. Some years later, a new payment scheme was introduced, which the union accepted. Then their policy during the pandemic, they did not even demand a pay rise during the pandemic, and so they tell you I quit in this year. So there's a lot of frustration here.
Yeah, unfortunately, that sounds all too familiar in terms of what we've been witnessing here. Britain is at a much, much lower union density rate than I think in Germany as a whole. But we've experienced this, encountered this in so many different ways, especially, I think, since the strike wave that happened almost 3.5 years ago now, where a lot of workers were just like, what was the point of me striking for, 10, 12, whatever, 20 days? I got nothing out of it. In fact, many people, said I actually just lost wages and then gained nothing. And I mean, of course, our job is to try and educate them in the sense of like, it's about a struggle, and why you need to make that struggle. But then it's also very concrete because for example, here, the unions wage their strike in a way that's not designed to win. There's no strike funds, there's no picket lines, there's no nothing. So then it really just, you can see the demoralization grow. And then people think, well, what's the point? What's the point of me paying my dues? What is it good for? So I myself am familiar with this because when I try and go around to recruit my coworkers to the union, honestly, it's not an easy sell because they're like, why? What will the union do for me? Which is, I think, just a reflection of the unions are not a force in this country. I think it's different in Germany, but the very fact that workers are quitting in disgust is highly, as you said, undermines the ability of the union to fight. But also, I mean, it's the leadership that's making that happen.
Yeah. So there are some colleagues like in their early 40s, and a big part of the colleagues that came together in autumn last year are around this age. They are not in their 50s now to see already the end of their, who could see retirement at the horizon. But they decided, we need to change something about that, and they are questioning in the job stewards body, for instance, why are we not striking against the massacre of industrial jobs? Why is it not possible?
I think it's important to build there are oppositionists in the unions, there are leftists, there are, people who are like active, but they are unorganized on the one hand. And the second thing is they need some rearmament politically. They are not well equipped. You remember the reactions to, you raised four demands, right? I mean, in your plan.
In the petition.
If you can tell us actually let's talk about your thing. So you've mentioned a couple of times you're in a auto plant, Mercedes in Berlin. Workforce went down from 3,000 something to 2,000 now.
Yeah, right.
Yes, and then there are.
And in the recent months, our Betriebsrat head, or the majority of our Betriebsrat, the factory council, they were in kind of secret negotiations with the management of the plant about a deal which they call Zielbild 2.0. That's like the deal for the future. Yeah, they agreed with the bosses to reduce the workforce to 1,000. And we were not hearing anything about these secret negotiations for weeks or months. And so we decided to collect signatures for a petition to our union leadership, the union leadership of Berlin, but also to the national union leadership with 4 demands. The first one says no further job cuts in our plant, no firings, and fight for all 2,000 jobs for the directly employed, for the temp workers, and for the workers at contractors. The second demand says no, if workers are sent to other plants in Germany, no forced transfers to other plants, because that is what is looming. And third, no sale of a part of our plant, because that's what they are intending to do. And if they are at the point that a part of the plant is sold, then these are facts which can be hardly be redone. And the fourth demand is actually the most important. It says our union, the IG Metall, has to prepare a strike in all German auto plants that lasts until the slashing of jobs is stopped. They do not only threaten us, but also our colleagues in Ludwigsfelde, another Mercedes plant, and Untertürkheim, the head of Mercedes, and in Wolfsburg, which is the VW headquarters. And it finishes with an injury to one is an injury to all. Yeah, so the fourth demand is actually the most important. We demand from our union that they prepare measures that are effective because we had enough action days or demonstrations for 3 hours or speeches of conservative politicians at our demonstrations, and this is not effective. The bosses just accept them and there is no consequence. So that's a demand for measures, for the preparation of measures that are effective.
I appreciate you laying that out. Before I ask my next question, can you just explain what is it, Betriebsrat? What is that for a non-German audience? Like, what, I know it's called a factory council, but how does that function?
The factory council is elected by all workers in the plant up to a certain level. Some lower hierarchy of management can also elect it. And, they are supposed to be delegates of us workers to stand for our interests, but in reality, they often are good friends with management and make deals that means stabbing a knife into our back. But also in our group we have ordinary union members, we have shop stewards, and we also have Betriebsrat members, members of the factory council. So in a lot of German auto plants, you have members of the factory council who are in opposition to the majority, and the majority is often backed by the union leadership.
Okay, interesting. So, how has the petition been received? What's been the reaction like?
Yeah, that was quite interesting. First of all, we collected 400 signatures, which is quite some statement that a considerable part of our colleagues in our plant is very dissatisfied with the course of our union and wants to fight. And a lot of workers were very happy that they answered, oh, there are some guys who want to fight again, because we had fights in some years or decades ago. A lot of good colleagues who were part of these fights actually quit the company in the recent years, and some colleagues really appreciated that there are still fighters left. But on the other side, several colleagues who actually signed our petition said, well, isn't that hopeless? How can you change something in the union? And isn't it all over yet? And with over, they meant either the plant or the whole industry. And but I think 400 signatures is a statement, and I think, and we hope, and we are quite sure that in the other German auto plants the picture is similar, because there's a considerable part of the workers in every auto plant is totally sick of it, sick of seeing their good jobs cut, and there's some anger growing. So we think petition and our course can be a spark.
Yeah, I must say, I think that's, I don't know, at least a quarter of your workforce almost, which is pretty good. Yeah. I am curious, again, just because I think in this country I'm familiar with arguments that our fellow comrades have come across, that how are you going to change something? I think it's not just maybe restricted to a concrete class struggle question, but I think, when we look back at the world, there's just so many things happening that there's a sense of despair or like, how can we change anything? So I'm wondering, how do you deal with that? Like, I'd be curious to hear.
Yeah, I answer that I think the crisis that is now developing will get bigger. When colleagues say, "Isn't it all hopeless now?" I answer that the crisis will even get bigger. We need a we don't want to be cheaps like or cattle who is slaughtered. And our kids want to have jobs too. And what's the other option? Do our kids they are supposed to work in shitty service jobs, or do we have there are plants, for instance, Tesla's plant in Grünheide, where they do not accept a union contract. The other side is very confident in attacking the union.
And I also think we have a very contradictory situation on the one hand, because we have thousands and thousands and thousands of people being isolated and despaired because they feel alone and see the need to organize and do something.
But the IG Metall, they have 2 million members. That's not like in Britain where Thatcher destroyed a whole union. We are not at this point yet. The 2 million metal workers are a force who could turn the tide in the country.
Yeah, sure. That's why they are attacked. Yeah. So the thing is like we need to organize those people. Also win other leftists. See, and this is also where we have huge contradictions. Like, remember in your plant, there's also some MLPD, for instance, or other leftists, and they say, "Oh yeah, we cannot support the petition because in point 4 you demand a strike on all plants. It's not legal," which you would expect from the metal union leadership, Yeah,
that's exactly what we are hearing from our factory council head.
And then the opposite thing happens, and then you have leftists like, and I think the IG, they said, "No, we don't support you. We don't help you collect signatures or anything at all because it's soft. You sow illusions in the metal union that they will strike this demand for." So you have both sides, it's not radical enough, or it's sowing, you shouldn't demand. Then there's also the David North, right? The PSG, they wrote a big thing like, you shouldn't to call on the union to do something. No, we need a very clean and nice and revolutionary new organization, which doesn't even exist. So there are many reasons not to simply help to organize the anger. And even inside the union, there were many oppositional groups inside the union which where single members said, "Yeah, that's cool. That's good. That's interesting, and we should do more." So these, we have to kind of organize these activists are all, I think they are ideologically disarmed, or they should be brought together, and then we can be a real force.
And we tell every organization which says that they are on the side of the working class, support us.
You can join, yeah.
We need help, and we welcomed help from the Spartakists when they helped us collecting signatures at the gates of the plant. There was another group, Autoarbeiter.kampf, that's Workers' Power, who actually wrote about our fight, and a very nice article where they gave this fight as a good example. We welcomed that. So, yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate, Steffen, you laying out the different reactions of the left. That's really interesting to hear, because what did they miss? It's what do you need to do now, right? Like, there's a job massacre happening.
Yeah.
Who else is going to fight except the union? The union is supposed to fight, actually. It's not doing that. So why not actually put pressure on it to fight? Because that's how you're going to show that these leaders who have been doing co-management with the bosses for so long, that these leaders need to go. But I think this is why the left in general, we talk about this often a lot on the show here. Internationally, the left is very weak. But why doesn't the working class look to the left? It's because the left does this in the concrete. It objects to formulations as opposed to finding a road to fight for what's needed concretely now, Yes, they say, okay, the strike is illegal, but I'm sorry. If thousands of jobs are on the line, then we need to do some illegal stuff.
And it is in our interest that the union is supposed to fight for our interests. And one of our interests is that we will have a job tomorrow. So
exactly, yes.
and that's what the union is for. And
we also had unionists who immediately said, well, we could maybe, to call for an unlimited strike might be illegal, but we could make meetings which last forever. I mean, if there's a will, you will find a way. So even, and the German, let's say, more reformist people, once they want it, they're going to find a way, and they're going to find some law or some formula you can fill in to make it legal. So it's all an excuse, It's simply, there's one thing, you are not allowed to lose your jobs, and you're not allowed to stand by as a leftist while our class is attacked. So we were so happy when we heard about this initiative, and we were happy to help in all with all forces we had, and try to motivate others to just do the same.
Can I just ask, what was your experience like trying to convince auto workers to sign this petition as a member of a communist group? What was that like? Did they? I'm just curious.
See, the German workers' movement it's the country of Karl Marx. To say to be as a communist in front of a plan no, it's nice. Actually, we had one worker. I just remember a couple of things. Generally, the reactions were pretty good. People were skeptical. People might be, but in general, they knew we were there to defend their jobs. So the general response was positive. Even from people who were politically not friendly, to leftists. They knew we were there to defend their jobs, so positive in the sense. But one guy stopped and he just started talking about the current rearmament force, like that the German army is to be built up, and that he will not let his children be sent to the army to die somewhere. And it was like you could feel like there was a real wish to speak out against broader questions too, And then you had others, we collected signatures together with the group members, like the factory council, so they knew people, and I tried to make some broader points sometimes, which were very well received, especially when I made a point like, if you have to make a law to ban combustion engines, something is strange here, This is artificial, They were looking for arguments to defend their work. They make really good work. They produce useful things, They make life possible for many people. This is not just some bullshit job, we're defending here, sondern some useful thing, And they do a service for whole society. So and then there were people who just said, even, maybe I could find another job, but what about my children? This is the only in this whole area of Berlin. This is the only big industrial plant left. So I want to defend it. I want a future for my children. This was also very impressive. There's a couple of people who said that. So it was best thing to do in a long time here.
And we want to as workers we want to defend ourselves, and you should not. Every worker, doesn't matter what their political affiliation or sympathy is, should be for that, and we also see that as a possibility to like a big part of the workforce, around 40% of German workers is voting for the AfD, so for another party of capitalists with racist demagogy. We see that as a possibility to win them back. So there are actually a lot of my colleagues who vote for the AfD think that this is quite good what we are proposing.
I'm really glad you brought up the AfD, because no conversation about Germany and the working class today is complete without talking about the AfD, which is the largest party in the working class, And I think some of the ways in which you've laid out how the unions have cooperated with the bosses and, basically been complicit in the attacks against the German working class. No wonder they're going to the other side. No wonder that with the years and years of this, what do you call it?
Traffic light.
Oh, yeah, traffic light government, yeah. But I guess, just like the years of the sort of status quo governments, no wonder that that's really just fueling workers who want to look for a different answer to what's on offer, because they're really sick of how the German ruling class has been weakening the economy, destroying their conditions. And so I appreciate you bringing up the AfD.
Well, I think, as you said, they are seen as a opposition. It's not like that everybody loves what they are saying, but they are seen as an opposition, in contrast to the left, who is widely not seen as an opposition. But I think that when we want to fight back this declaration of war, how I called it, we need the broadest possible unity among workers from Turkish, Eastern European, and whatever background. And there, the AfD is an obstacle for that. We need the broadest possible unity, and so their racist demagogy is an obstacle for that.
You report against also. Maybe you just tell about the discussions in your group, like excluding. There were voices initially to say, we will never collaborate with anyone from the AfD, or workers have to be anti-racist in order to support us. And we had quite some arguments about this, right?
Yeah, and we welcome every worker who wants to fight against the slashing of jobs and who stands for another course for our union. And we want to convince every worker, independent from their political affiliation, that the broadest possible unity is necessary for that. What the AfD stands for is an obstacle for that.
Yeah, and you have to prove, action can prove that, right?
Yeah, it's, again, there's many similarities here from what I know in the United States as well, where a lot of the working class looks to, of course, in the United States, it's Trump and MAGA, but there will be pro-union workers who will vote for, a reactionary leader. Here, there will be people in the union movement who will vote for Nigel Farage, whose party is rapidly growing, especially amongst the working class. So I think the left does have this reaction of, okay, well, they're just reactionary, so you can't work with them. But I think there is a contradiction there. Well, first one, they are still workers, objectively. It's in their interest to fight. But two, like, the contradiction is that they have pro-union impulses, but they have the wrong politics. Yeah. So how do you win them back? It's not an easy task. It is an enormous task. And I think partly the weakness of the left, and it's, as you keep saying, the ideological rearmament that needs to happen. I think that is a huge part of trying to build that unity in the working class, but it's not easy.
Start with talking to people and not just say, oh, you voted for AfD, so I don't talk to you anymore. You are fascist, simply. The situation is like that the AfD is the strongest party in the working class. SPD, Green, and the Left Party combined got less votes by 10% margin inside the working class. And it's not just the German workers voting for AfD, it's part of the Turkish, Kurdish workers too. So, and we have many divisions. You have the Turkish workers resenting refugees from Syria, the Syrian refugees being treated much worse than the Ukrainian refugees. And so there's so many divisions, everyone, each against everyone, men against women. And they split it up. It's crazy, And then we come with a simple communist program of, workers should unite to fight, we should defend, we should, it's proletariat against the ABCs, that's actually what the left should do in practice. And so many groups fail, but at the same time, it's also the impulses are good too. Let's see the MLPD, for instance, right? This is what they said, they cannot sign our petition. At the same time, all their members want to know about this petition. All their members are in support of that fight if you talk to them individually, So it's funny because their ideology they're better than their own ideology. So in reality, and this makes also hope, because we have a lever here, so they push for, they do have good impulses. They do, this is also in the union with the unionists, they might have maybe many liberal illusions and so on and so forth. But you can, at the same time, in practice, in concrete struggles, see how you have a possibility to overcome it, at least for part of them. And that's why it's so important to pick up the concrete struggles. You need to have the programmatic debates, the general debates, but at the same time, you have to do the concrete fight on the ground together. That's the way forward.
Okay. Look, I do appreciate bringing in the AfD into this discussion and the actual divisions that exist, and the huge challenges that you confront, yes, in just going forward. I want to end by asking you, like, how do you feel about what's coming ahead? Are you optimistic? Are you how?
At one point, I decided that it is not an option anymore to put your head in the sand. How are you saying? Do you say that in English?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very frightening. When you always accept, well, where does it end? And so the tasks are very challenging. But what we are doing right now is I think we challenge the way, or we challenge our union leadership. It's because we think that their policy is weakening the union and is leading to a disaster, and we don't want to accept that. And I see the reactions among my coworkers. A lot of that is what we discussed for the last 2 or 3 years anyway. That's to a lot of my coworkers, that's nothing new. But I decided what we discussed for the last 2 or 3 years. I decided to put that in writing, and we brought out these leaflets. And when I see some of the reactions, I feel encouraged. I think that can be a spark.
Yeah, I like the way you say that, because it isn't an option. It's hard. I think it is hard. There's a lot of despair out there, but at some point it will click that you cannot put your head in the sand anymore, and you have to put your foot down and fight. So I appreciate that, and I think it is. Yeah, I think that's what's needed. somebody putting the foot down and then saying, "Look, let's fight, and let's fight like this." And at least that can be the start of a discussion, a debate, or real steps forward. So I think it's very nice to hear your experience. So I appreciate you sharing it with us.
Thanks for the invitation. Yeah.
Of course, yeah, it's very, very interesting. I've been wanting to do this discussion for some time. I know that your petition is now it's a few months old now, no?
Yep. Soon, within the next days or 1 or 2 weeks, we will meet and discuss how we want to present this petition with the strongest impact as possible. Plus, they came out in the new year now with the announcement that they want to hire 150 temp workers, while at the same time maintaining the program of slashing jobs of the core workforce. That's
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can imagine, this is outrageous.
Yep.
So there will be a lot of discussions about. There's anger about that, and yeah, we it's an ongoing fight, and we will discuss how we will react to that.
Okay, cool. And if people who are listening want to keep up with what you are doing, how do they get in touch with you?
So far we have an email address, autoarbeiter.kampf@proton.me.
Okay, I will link that in the show notes.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Last, I have a request before both of you go, which is, can you please say the names of your organizations in German?
Also ich bin Jens von den Autoarbeitern für eine kämpfende IG Metall.
Love it. Steffen?
Okay. Ich bin Steffen von der Spartakist-Arbeiterpartei Deutschlands, deutsche Sektion der Internationalen Kommunistischen Liga. 4. Internationalisten.
Okay, thank you so much. That's just made my day. All right. Look, I appreciate you both taking the time to discuss this. I look forward to updates. I will link the contact information in the show notes. The leaflets that the group for a fighting IG Metall has published, they can be found on the website. I will link that in the show notes as well. And yeah.
Cool.
Very, very best of luck with your upcoming meeting and the fight ahead.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, comrades. Bye. Bye.
Well, I ain't got no smoke, at least not with you. And I don't know if you don't know, but there are just a few of oligarchs and capitalists profiting massive profits, holding us down in lockstep. And your vote, it ain't gonna stop